morning. Once again, we welcome you to Cornerstone Worship Center, and today we're bringing you Walking with the Lord. And it's been far too many times here recently. We don't have a guest here this morning. So, and I found out my wife was busy making some dessert. I can't stop that. And so you got Pastor Jennifer and myself, Pastor Don. And what we're going to do today is a little bit different from what we normally do. First of all, it was, I don't know, several weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
We talked about 7 core values. And unfortunately, we didn't get through all of them. We got through 5, we didn't get through the last 7. So we're going to start with that, and from there we'll shift gears somewhat and go to a couple other areas. But briefly, and I mean briefly, the 5 that we talked about last time was God first.
Mm-hmm.
What has to be first in your life?
God, and everything.
It's got to be God.
Yes.
If it isn't God, then you're putting something above God.
Right.
And God kind of frowns on that.
Yeah.
And then love. And matter of fact, we heard a message yesterday on love.
Yes.
If it is of God, it is of love. And so we're to treat everything with the love of God. I think we like to think that, man, we know what love's all about, but we really don't.
No.
The agape love that God has is far superior to our love. And of course, faith. When I was younger, I thought faith was believing God most of the time. But faith is believing God regardless of what's taking place in your life. And so that has to be part of it. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I have found, and I've gone through so many courses in my life, I've read books on what the church is supposed to be doing and what it shouldn't be doing. But the one thing they're always missing, at least everything I think, is integrity. And without integrity, you ain't got nothing. See, integrity is doing what's right when no one else is around. Yeah. And integrity is one thing I think so many of us fall short in. But that's one of them. And the last one we spoke on, again, an area that a lot of people don't like to talk about, sacrifice. Yeah. When you serve God, that is a life of sacrifice. And sacrifice none of us like to talk about, because it means giving up something that we want to hang on to.
Yes.
And so that's an area that I think the church needs to be a little bit more into. Matter of fact, and I intended to look up the verse and I forgot it before I did. But in the Old Testament, how's it go? Sacrifice.
Is it the one in 2 Samuel?
I believe so. Very, very important. So, anyway, what it says is sacrifice without a cost is not a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. That's putting it in today's jargon, but it really means giving up something that has a value to you. Mm-hmm. And that's what sacrifice is. And your Christian life is all sacrifice. You always have to step aside and let God's will come in. So now we want to look at forgiveness. Oh boy, another one. We believe forgiveness is available to all. But there's a catch in that, and I just quickly want to mention that. If you want forgiveness, we have to do what? We have to forgive. We have to forgive. Mm-hmm. Boy, that's tough. Have any of you out there ever had somebody do you wrong? Mm-hmm. And for the first thing we can think of, if I just get my hands on their neck and squeeze just a little bit, I feel better. No, you won't. And then we go through life wishing that person things that are not good. And what are we doing?
You're hurting yourself.
Yeah, we're hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
But when we release it, oh, you're set free.
Mm-hmm.
And as a pastor, I think you are wrong so many times. And if you let it bother you, your ministry will just go.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, anybody who's been in ministry, anyone has had people do them wrong. But we had to learn to release it to God, give it to Him.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, God said, "Vengeance is mine."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and also there's a verse that says that when you do something kind to somebody who has done you wrong, you're just throwing hot coals on their head.
Yeah.
You got a verse you want to read?
Well, I'm just, the verses that are listed.
Okay.
1 John chapter 1, verses 8 and 9 says, "If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sin, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness."
So what do we have to do?
We have to confess.
We have to confess.
Confess.
And when we confess it, it no longer belongs to us.
Right.
Now God owns it. So forget about it. And just walk as if it never took place. Not even. You know, probably the hardest thing in life is what?
Forgiveness. Walking away.
Yeah, serving God correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And but it's just so good when you finally learn that you are not the center of the world.
Right.
Oh, that's disappointing. Did you have another one?
The second verse is John 3:16 and 17, and I think everybody pretty much knows John 3:16. It says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. For God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through Him might be saved."
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So He paid the price.
Yeah.
So if He paid the price, why do we hang on those things that puts us in debt? It's really that simple.
Mm-hmm.
We've all gone through things in our life that I don't know if I mentioned this ever on here. Many years, when I shouldn't say many years ago, but it was about 25, 26, 27 years ago. I got a call in the middle of the night. My mother lived in Portland, in Oregon, and I was here in Michigan. And it was my dad who said that my mother had suddenly died, something that we didn't expect. So by 6 o'clock in the morning, we was on a plane flying to Oregon. And when we got there, we couldn't rent a car because snow was too heavy on the pass. And we couldn't fly out, I'm sorry. So we rented a car. And we had an exciting trip over the mountains because they were on the east side of the mountains. And it took us about 3 hours, which normally take about an hour and a half. But when we got there, I was expecting because my brother lives in Oregon, I was expecting him to be there also, and he wasn't. My dad was totally stunned, totally. He had never had to take care of a death.
Mm.
And so he knew nothing to do. So when I got there, I said, well, have you contacted a funeral home? No. Have you talked to Leonard? No. So the first thing I did was call my brother. And he said, well, I'm sick. I said, why are you sick? He said, well, I got a cold. Well, I don't care if you got a cold. You need to be here. Dad needs you. Mm-hmm. And make a long story short, because we haven't got that much time. 3 days later, we had the funeral. and my brother had not showed up. And when the funeral had already started when my brother walked in, and he went straight to the casket and got there and started bawling. I was so mad at him. I wanted to get up and just, well, he's bigger than I, so I couldn't, but I wanted to get up there and just tear him apart. And it caused a little friction between us because it took me probably about a half a year before I forgave him. But then everything was restored. But I should not have let it bother me. But when you're under a strain, you do some things you shouldn't. But the important thing is that you do forgive. Right. The seventh one, why is most of these things we don't like? Servant. We believe we should submit ourselves as servants unto others. Christ came to serve, so should we.
That's right.
I don't like to serve some people. However, one thing I've learned, and maybe you have too, people that you have a problem with are usually the people that God puts in your life more than you desire.
Because those are the ones that teach you something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the Lord says, you got to love them, and you got to forgive them, and now you got to serve them.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Yes, he is.
Yeah.
See, we're called into, Jesus did not come the first time anyway to rule. He came to serve.
Yeah.
Remember when he about ready to go to the cross? And what did he do? He got out a pan and washed the feet of his disciples. Think about that. The King of Glory was about to be nailed to a cross by the Jewish people. And here was his disciples, and he got a towel and some water and washed their feet. That is being a servant. Oh, yeah. We did that here a couple of times, a long time ago. It changes people, but you'd be surprised at some of the negative expressions, I'll put it, that we get. And it's mainly by women because they had hose on. But we're not going to ask them to take hose off, believe me.
Right.
But anyway, to be a servant is all that God asks. And I think if we love and we're a servant, everything else just kind of falls in line. You got any comments about these?
Well, I was just thinking about the servant. I think the younger generation today doesn't understand what that is.
True.
I know that when you work in the service industry, whether it's fast food or it's retail or you kind of understand a little better what a servant is, and I've told my kids, and all of my kids at one point or another have worked in the service industry, whether it's volunteering or actually working. But I believe that everyone needs to do that. They need to learn what it is to be a servant. Learn, because it teaches you how to watch your tongue. I understand that. But when we talk to these kids in here about being a servant, do they really understand what we're talking about?
I don't think so.
Because they've not had to serve. They're on a whole different mindset than what we are. I know that we grew up in two very different generations, but things weren't given to us. We had to earn, and we had to serve others to earn that paycheck and get what we need, where today they're given everything.
That's true, and I think that's the reason they don't value life as much as we value life. My first job was when I was 13 years old.
Mhm.
And at that time, I got minimum wage. I think, if I remember right, it was 85 cents an hour. But to be honest about it, I worked after school and I worked on Saturday mornings. And when I got that very first check, which I don't remember, it's $4 and something or $5 and something for the week. I thought I was the richest man on earth.
Mhm.
I mean, I was so elated to get that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I went straight to the bank and cashed it and stopped at the sporting goods on the way home and bought myself a new fishing pole, a new rod, and if I remember right, waders. This is all for whatever the check was. Times has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But my father always said, when you work for somebody, he said you're a slave to them.
Mhm.
And since I was brought up that way, I understood what he was saying. He was saying, you owe them a full day's work for what you give them.
Right.
And that has always been my guiding light as I've gone through. For years, I worked in a corporate field. And in the area where I worked, everybody at that time had at least a master's degree. And I just had a degree.
Mhm.
And I was put down constantly. However, every time I would transfer to another position, they took 3 people to fill my job.
Mhm.
Because I wasn't there to talk about what my degree wasn't doing good because everyone else had a bigger one.
Right.
But I was there to give them a day's work
Mhm.
for what I got paid.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we need. Matter of fact, we need to look at that from our standpoint with God. If God gives you a day, we woke up this morning. If you're watching this, you woke up this morning. Well, God woke you up. He had you on the wake up list.
That's right.
And I think I put that on Facebook this morning. If he woke you up, he had a plan for you today. Yeah. And if he had a plan for you today, then you need to fulfill that plan. When you do that, then you are taking these core values and putting them into your life.
Mm-hmm. The verses that go with servant is 1 Corinthians 9, verses 19 through 23.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, "For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win the more. And to the Jews I became as a Jew, and that I might win Jews. To those who are under the law, as under the law, that I might win those who are under the law." That's confusing to me, sorry. "Not being without law toward God, but under law toward Christ, that I might win those who are without law. To the weak I became as weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. Now this I do for the gospel's sake, that I may partake of it with you."
I think that gets down to the core of what a Christian's life is all about. Why does God leave us here on planet Earth? To lead others to God.
Mm-hmm.
What a task. And I think I've said this many times. If I was God, you'd all be in trouble, but if I was God, the last people I would depend on to get the job done is us. Because we fail God in so many ways. But then we can look at it another way. We're always God.
That's true.
But as he works through us, then he equips us.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the?
I don't think so. I mean, they're hard to live up to, for
Yes.
sure. But I think it's a good guideline, not only for a church, but as individuals.
Oh, yes. I think perhaps, I know don't we have one of these on the bulletin?
No.
Bulletin board?
We will.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we should frame one
We can do that.
and hang it somewhere.
Sure.
Okay. Because we need a constant reminder. We did put this in a bulletin, didn't we?
No, but we can.
Well, we can.
Okay, you just added 2 more things to my to-do list.
Servanthood. Well, another thing we want to mention, how much time we got?
About 7 minutes.
Oh boy. Coming up the 10th, 11th, and 12th of this month, we have a sister church, part of Anchor Bay Evangelistic Association in Cadillac, Michigan. And they are holding a conference. It's their conference, but we're there to support. Yeah. And we will be there. You've been working on the bulletin board.
I don't have one ready yet, but
Yeah.
it's just the dates and times, and
Okay.
so the time Tuesday is the 10th, and that first service is it 6:30?
6.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock.
That's a change.
Yeah, it's earlier than what we normally do. And then Wednesday morning, there's a service at 10, and then Wednesday evening again at 6, and then Thursday morning at 10. So there's 4 services. My understanding is we're doing snacks after the evening service on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then a luncheon on Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday afternoon.
So,
Right.
and I'm kind of looking forward to it, and this is awful, but this is my favorite time of year, when the leaves start to change.
Oh, it's beautiful there this time of the year.
Another couple weeks when we're up there, it's gonna be beautiful, the colors are gonna be beautiful, and Lake Mitchell and Lake Cadillac are both right there, so the leaves on the trees are on the lake will be beautiful.
Lake Cadillac is, and where we're staying, we can see Lake Cadillac.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm told. I haven't stayed at that place. I've always stayed elsewhere when I've gone up there.
So,
And but it's going to be a good time. We don't have the names of the speakers yet, except on Tuesday night, coming in from Leavenworth, Kansas, will be the president of Anchor Bay, and he will be speaking, and Keith Connard, and great man of God. He made a vow to God,
yes.
almost 2 years ago now,
Something like that,
that he would not get his hair cut until I think it's 300,
300.
till he was able to pray with at least 300 people in Leavenworth on the streets.
Yes,
Just walk up the streets. And last I heard, he just went over 200.
yes.
So his hair's a little long, but he's a great man of
Yes,
God,
yes.
and we dearly love him, and we're sure that people will enjoy him. And like I say, I know what they got planned, but they haven't got current confirmation on them yet.
Right.
So until we get that, we're just going to remain silent. But if you got time, come for one, or come up for all of them, do it. You don't have to be part of Anchor Bay. Just be there and celebrate. Their church is a little bit smaller than ours. I would guess they could hold 100 people if they really had to. But the pastors, Mike Green and Kathy Green,
Yes.
are the pastors there. Great people. Come and love on them a little bit. Have we got time to?
We do.
Well, I'm going to hand that over to you.
So the other thing that we have going on, I say we have going on, because we're planning on attending,
Yeah.
is October 26th, and that's the annual fall banquet for Teen Challenge. I know those of us here at Cornerstone love Teen Challenge.
Yes.
We love it when they're here, when they minister, and even more so, we love to go to the banquet.
Yeah.
Some people like to go for the food. But you get to see what Teen Challenge is, what it's all about, and you get to see those that have graduated the program, and where they are now. I don't think I went last year. Maybe I did. The one year we went, the guy he graduated the program and was in retail, or real estate. And he had the biggest personality. And it was just amazing. But that's what gets me, is those stories of where they came from,
Yeah.
and where they are now. And they are so thankful. Not necessarily to Teen Challenge, but they're thankful to God, and that they met God there.
Right.
Or God met them there, I guess you could say. And has created this walk for them that is just amazing. You know, mothers that have lost their children now have their children back.
Right.
You know, and those kinds of things. But we encourage you guys to do that. I will, when we post this, I will go ahead and add Teen Challenge's phone number and contact information on there. But again, it's October 26th. The banquet starts at 6 o'clock. They do have a silent auction that starts at 5:30, and they have something for everybody at the silent auction. Men and women alike. There's so much different stuff. So I would encourage you to go and look at the silent auction items and attend the banquet. And if you can't, then, but you still want to give, I can put that information out there too. So you guys have an opportunity to bless that organization.
Yeah. Great organization.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, if your church has never invited them to your church, you should look into it. Their program is fantastic. There's nothing like seeing 8 or 10 people who are about ready to walk through the door of hell, and the organization has brought them back, and now they're serving God.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's just exciting.
Yeah. We're at the last 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to do something different.
You are?
Yes.
Are you going to shut the camera off?
If you got something you'd like to say, then I'll close.
Oh, goodness. I guess the biggest thing is just what I've been hearing a lot lately, and I think a lot of it is what I've been preaching on myself, is that God is not in a box.
No.
God doesn't exist in that little space that you give him. God is bigger than that.
That'll preach.
I know. And in order for us to fulfill the core values that he has set for us, we can't put ourselves inside that box. So, and I think Christians have, in general, have kept ourselves in that 4 walls of the church.
We keep ourselves within our abilities.
What we think our abilities
Yes.
are. Yes.
And when God wants to.
We don't have faith,
Yes.
which is one of the core values, that he can do what he's asked us to do, because that's where it comes down to, is we have to have that faith. But I would encourage anybody to step outside the 4 walls of the church.
Yes.
Because I'm sure sometime I'm going to say this and it's going to get me in trouble with somebody, but imagine that, me get in trouble for saying something. My philosophy is it's not about butts in the seats, but it's about souls in heaven. And that's where we have to, and you're not going to reach the souls you're not going to get the souls in heaven if you're only practicing God or practicing being a Christian when you're within that 4 walls of the church.
Right.
It doesn't happen that way. Our mission and our task is way bigger than the 4 walls. So I think that's kind of where we as a church have been directed to, with all of the outreach and online stuff that we have been doing, as taxing as it may be sometimes.
Yes.
But that's kind of where we've stepped out, and I just encourage everybody to just take a baby step if you have to, but step outside and even if it's smiling at somebody in the grocery store or saying God bless you or something, just take that step to step out into where God is, and not that he's not within the four walls, but he's way bigger than that. So.
Yeah. Once again, we thank you for watching, and we hope somehow we touched a button that'll get you excited about serving God. So we say, bless you, and we'll see you next week.